Hello again, everybody, and welcome back. It's Halloween month 2021. You know what that means. It's story time. Scary story time. At least an attempt at it. This year, we're going to the west coast, the very northwest coast of the state of Washington. And this is a story I'm calling Lighthouse, Dark Doors. Shall we begin? The month was October, when a maritime historian named Ben, a maritime archaeologist named Willa, and an oceanographer named Darius were asked to accompany a group of Coast Guard to Tatoosh Island to investigate a ship that had grounded off of the island's cliffs. Tatoosh Island was half a mile off of Cape Flattery, on Washington State's most northwestern coastline. You'd need the Makah tribe's permission to go there since it was part of their reservation. Ben and Darius had known each other for a few years through a mutual friend, but Darius had never worked directly with him. He had heard tell that Ben had had a real downward spiral since his wife had passed about a year ago. The three of them introduced themselves to each other and made small chit-chat while they waited for their ride. It hadn't yet begun to rain, but as they were talking and waiting outside, Darius could smell it was on its way. And that made Darius think of Map of the Heart, Clear Heart, with its green leaves and black currant, water notes, peony, sandalwood. It was new to his collection, but he really liked wearing it on warm days. And this kind of a environment and the smell that was coming at him just really anchored him into thinking about that perfume. What you didn't know is that Darius loved to think about perfume to kind of reduce his anxiety when he was stressed out. He wasn't really stressed at this point, but he was nervous and excited because he didn't know why he was being called with the Coast Guard to see a ship that was beached, basically. So his confusion, the unknown, made him anxious. And his way of meditating, his way of kind of calming his inner self, was to think of perfume. They had to fly by helicopter to Tatoosh Island, since storms were heading their way, and it made getting to the rocky island by boat impossible. The ride was dark, bumpy, and terrifying. The landing pad was next to an empty, now automated lighthouse. Other than the lighthouse, there were only a few run-down, decrepit outbuildings that were left from eras ago. This place had been abandoned a while. As the helicopter was starting to line up to land, Darius looked into the inky night and thought he saw a woman and a child run around the base of the lighthouse and then disappear on the far side. What would a kid be doing out here, Darius thought, but he had totally forgotten about it by the time he exited the chopper. The captain from the Coast Guard had instructed them to wait in the temporary shelters that they had set up until she came to get them. As he perused his surroundings, Darius overheard her talking to a subordinate about the urgency of locating a couple of missing ensigns. The Coast Guard had fashioned lights and a bridge of sorts from the western edge of the cliffs to the impossibly close bow of the wreck. As he walked to the shelter, he still couldn't see the ship very well, but he could see the remnants of her name, Novus Noctem. If Darius remembered his Latin at all, it meant night ship. How a 700-foot-long ship was able to get that close to this island answers the question, why the hell am I here? Darius had looked up a bit about Tatoosh Island prior to coming. He recalled pictures that showed small windswept shrubs scattered around a blanket of grasses, about it being a wildlife sanctuary. From spring to summer, the salmonberry flowers would bloom in brambles, colored fuchsia and purple or red, with their soft, very soft rose-like aroma. Remembering a quote from the Seattle Times archives that said, "Fossil whale bones jut from the sandstone banks. Old Indian middens of cast-off shells and bones dribble down the cliffs. Sea caves and arches turn the plateau into a grand sculpture." As he stood on the windy island, taking in the ocean breeze and the night sky, he couldn't help but think of Towers Follow Blue, with its sea notes and green notes and fennel and citruses. That fragrance had wowed him from the first moment he smelled it. Darius saw Ben and Willa having an intense conversation in the provisional shelter, and noticed that Ben was drinking a coffee out of a Starbucks cup that had hazelnut mocha written on it. But the sweet drink hadn't been able to cover the smell of booze on his breath. Another perfume just popped into his head. This time it was Proad's Café de Chiang Mai, with its coffee and rum and chocolate and pepper and hazelnut and musk. It was a perfect scent to describe the way Ben smelled at this time, with the booze and the coffee and the hazelnut and even the musk, except for Ben's musk was a little dirty, and not the clean musk that's in Proad. Darius walked to the other door that faced the lighthouse. He saw a light that looked like it was coming from a lantern, passing by the windows of the decrepit house that was built around the base of the lit sphere. Since the captain had said it would be a while before they'd be ready for them to come on board the ship, Darius decided to check out the lighthouse. Maybe whomever was inside would give him a quick tour. He always wanted to see the inside of an old lighthouse, and this might be his only opportunity. He left Willa and Ben to their disagreement, turned on his flashlight, and walked around the outer building in the same path the woman and child had taken earlier, suddenly recalling them. The door was open, and there was a dim glow coming from somewhere further inside, and so he walked in. This room only contained peeling paint, musty odors, an old chair, and a small table. Darius really wanted to see the tower, so he found his way to a heavy wooden door donning a wrought iron handle, surrounded by curved sandstone wall. It opened easily, if not a bit creepy, and he stepped into a small round room with the beginning of a spiral staircase snaking its way up the stone cement tower. And a few pipes were running down the center of the spire. He felt a childlike thrill as he stared up into the column. When he lowered his flashlight, he noticed the dimmest of lights at what was close to the top of the stairs. The oceanographer thought he could hear faint voices somewhere above him as well. It was probably that mother and little girl, or what he assumed was a little girl since it was wearing a dress. He looked up again, and suddenly heard a blood-freezing scream as an object from high up quickly grew bigger and bigger as it fell from one of the top levels. Darius moved out of the way just in time to avoid being hit by an old porcelain doll. The impact shattered most of the face of the toy, blasting flesh-colored pieces across the concrete floor, some even hitting him in the process. Now truly scared, he looked down at the doll, then back up the circular stairs. Another scream! This one was much farther down the stairs and sounded like it was coming right his way. Nope, this is his time to exit stage left. Darius turned to leave out the door as slowly as he was able, trying not to feel like a little bitch, but it was now shut. He couldn't remember when that happened. He grabbed the handle and pulled, and it wouldn't open. Panic started to rise and stuck in his throat. He shook it and he pulled, and nothing. And suddenly, whoosh, something slammed into him and passed right through. He heard panting behind him, and then something passed through him again, this time much more gently. There was a definite aroma that happened when all of this passed through him. It left an aroma like Kimberly NY artsy, with the candied apple and the marshmallow and the crushed violets and sandalwood. Even thinking of that sweet and playful smell couldn't calm Darius's nerves now. He was shook, and he backed away from the door. He decided to climb to the top so he could access the outside. Hopefully he could get someone's attention, and they could unlock the door for him. He just wanted to get out of here now. Darius began his ascent. He started climbing normally at first, but then began running when he heard a growl come from the foot of the stairs. He did not want to know what it was, but he shined his flashlight anyway, all the way around the stairs as far as he could see, and there was nothing. "What the hell is going on here?" he yelled. The top ended with a set of steep stairs leading to a trapdoor. But before he could find out, the growl turned into a ferocious snapping snarl right next to him. But again his eyes saw nothing. Terrified, he flails and he loses his balance and his footing right at the edge of the tower's precipice. Screaming, he falls back over the railing and into the dark, round void. As he's falling, Darius thinks, "I should have landed by now. This tower isn't that tall." He hated having to wait for the pain and probable death, but he just kept falling. A moment later, he overloads and blacks out. When he is finally able to open his impossibly heavy eyes, he couldn't seem to focus. After several seconds, he sees he's laying on an antique blue and gold velvet sofa. Candles and lanterns dimly illuminate the area around him, showing him he's in a ballroom of some kind, with the beginning of an ornate spiral staircase to his left. The floors look to be made of black marble. The pillar next to him appears as dark as polished onyx, and the walls were made of warm brown teak planks. He smells pipe tobacco, exotic spices, honeyed wine, sweet treats, and clean laundry. It reminds him of one of his favorite tobacco perfumes of all time, a new discovery for him actually, by the House of Lark, called Evasion Digo de Havane. With its tobacco and honey and lavender and cinnamon, vanilla, chocolate, and cedar, it is one of his all-time favorites, a desert island perfume. That calms him a little bit thinking about the perfume, to where he feels brave enough to take a few steps into the huge room. And he sees a grand piano on a small stage to his right, with a little dance floor next to it. The other side of the room had maybe 20 sculpted round tables with matching wooden chairs, all of them carrying gold velvet cushions. Opposite the stage was a modest yet fully stocked bar. Somehow, Darius knew exactly where he was. He's on the Novice Noctem. I hope you join me for part 2. The Novice Noctem, Ship of Screams. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.